you'll notice that my egg had a hatch time of 33 hours. Um, and I found out that that's because I have the game on hard. And for some reason, while the game has some, reasonably challenging things like that, mobs do 4 times extra damage to me on hard, and technology takes like twice as long. But the surprising thing is that they actually have eggs take 36 times longer to incubate in hard mode, which is a bit of a strange decision to effectively make eggs completely worthless, especially if you're playing a single player game like I am. And when I quit the game, the world doesn't persist.
Game begin.
The Mystery Gaming Bros are awesome! The Mystery Gaming Bros know how to party!
Hey, Mystery Pony Fiction here to bring you another episode of the Mystery Gaming Pals, the show where we talk about Pokemon with guns, with my co-hosts and pals, the Spear of Shakes and the Flow of Cash. How you guys doing?
Having a great time.
Having a great time and flowing that cash.
Having a great time with PalWorld, I assume, is the main thing you've been doing?
That's correct.
I wish. I haven't gotten it yet, but I've heard such great things that it's going to be the next game I get, honestly.
That's a shame. You're probably going to be sitting in the background a bit, but at least you'll be showing us some videos. So I made a little video to be background video while we talk about PalWorld, which is about 7 minutes long. And if our discussion goes longer than that, then you can bring up other PalWorld videos after mine.
Oh, it's definitely going to go longer. It's been, all right, from what I've seen, it is something that looks like so much fun and totally up my alley. So I used to play Arma, and
hang on, just hold on a sec. Sorry, it's just that it looked like the video was flickering off and on, like your stream. Okay, it seems to be going fine now. Sorry, continue.
I'm going to start that section. Just edit it out later.
Just go to the start of the video and start over. Sorry, I'm just troubleshooting as we go. Okay. So, talk about PalWorld.
I don't have as much in-depth experience as you guys do, but it looks like so much freaking fun. I love the base builder aspect to it, especially what I'm seeing now on screen, like since this is your base.
Mm.
The first thing that hit my mind when I saw this was Arma, because, you make similar bases there. It's not exactly the same. It's a military sim, but, I do love base building and survival type games. To me, that's so much fun. I just absolutely love it. And to combine, like, not Pokemon, but, little pals with all this, like, oh, hell yes. Yes, 100%.
I mean,
to me,
it's a mix of, like, all kinds of games, like Valheim, Ark, obviously Pokemon, and it just, like, it meshes them all together, but it does it in a really good way. And the game is in early access, but everything is quite functional as a full-fledged game already. And it just does everything that it tries to do really competently. It doesn't necessarily do anything half-assed. I'd say the building is quite a bit simpler than Conan Exiles and Ark and Valheim, but they're definitely going to expand on it and make it better.
Real quick, I gotta ask, why is there a giant rock like right in front of your door?
Yeah, I explained that in the video. That happened to be the spawn place of a rock, and I happened to put the gate there, and then it spawned back later, and I was like, oh, okay, this does look a bit awkward.
Yeah, the resources in the game do regenerate after some time. Sometimes it takes more or less time depending on what your game settings are. This game does a lot. Yes, you get the Pokemon analog to it, and obviously it borrows a lot from Valheim in terms of the building mechanics, which right now are very simple. But let's remember that Valheim's building mechanics were very simple when they first started too. And again, let's remember these are both early access games. The first vibe I got when I started playing PalWorld was definitely a Breath of the Wild vibe. When you first exit out of that beginning part at the top of the plateau and you see the great big world,
Yeah,
and
it's
you
really
run
good at
through.
giving that sense of scale of how, you see a mountain in the distance, you can climb it.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like you can run up to a wall and jump on it, and you can start climbing it with a stamina meter, just like Breath of the Wild. So
Mm.
like, but nobody's banging their wardrobe saying, "Oh, it's a Breath of the Wild ripoff," even though it has like the fast travel points. It has the same map functionalities. Because what it's doing is it's taking a lot from a lot of games, and it's very easy for the Pokemon with guns to be the catchphrase to sell the game. But the funny thing is, like, I've got just shy of 50 hours in the game. I didn't get my first gun in this game until well after the 10-hour mark.
Yeah, I've
Up
only
until
just
then,
gotten crossbows myself.
yeah, like you'll get like a club or a bat or a bow or bow and arrow. But it's gonna be mostly melee, and you don't get guns until like the later to the mid to late game, where you start being able to find sulfur and coal to start making gunpowder and metal ingots to make the ammunition and to craft the guns. And like even your first gun is just going to be like a pipe rifle, it's or a rustic pistol which takes coarse ammo, and obviously it's going to be more convenient to use than a bow and arrow in combat, but the materials and the time it takes to craft the ammunition starts to become really prohibitive in terms of time. And that's one of the things that's when it really starts to force your hand into automation. And so all these components of the game all play on each other with a really good synergy where you're very much incentivized to do the assembly line, setups of getting your pals to collect the materials and to craft them into ammunition and weapons for you. But like the early game really does not feel like a Pokemon game. It really feels more like Valheim, where you're worried about not freezing at night, having some shelter, having some place to sleep. The survival elements are very strong early on. Um, and then obviously you go out and you try to collect the pals, but you're not collecting them for their own sake to necessarily battle with them. You're collecting them for the sake of their utility, so they serve as like another resource in the game, because like you can put them in a pen. You can like the alpacas there. You can put them in the pen to get wool to make into fabric, to make into cloth, which you make clothing with, and you use that to stop from freezing at night. Uh, the way that the technology unlocks as you progress with your character helps to regulate, like, so that way you don't just pour all of your points into one thing to have like a overpowered bow and arrow. There's limits to your technology windows, and there are a few things that the game I find is lacking on. And again, it is early access, so we're gonna forgive it for that. So one of the things I
Right.
looked at that I wanted to talk about today
Yeah,
was the
especially
modding scene.
the mobs, like the human mobs, they get really glitchy. Get stuck on
Well,
terrain and can't reach you and
yeah.
stuff.
So yeah, one of the things in this game is like it asks the question, all right, what if you could catch people in Pokemon? And this game lets you do it. It's not easy and it's not practical
Wait,
and
you
it's not even
can?
really very useful.
Oh, you can catch the people in this game?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't
Uh,
know that.
yeah, you can catch them. The AI for the enemies is not very good. They get hung up on the architecture. They'll get stuck behind things, and it's pretty easy to eliminate them, which I'm sure is something that they're going to work on. But right now they're just working on like any game-breaking bugs, like in terms of people not being able to load the game or having it crash for one reason or another. But I have found that the game itself is very stable in my experience. Um, until I get under the hood and start tinkering with it, which is something I'm liable
Yeah.
to do. And
What
but
one
like
big problem that I've been having is frame rate issues. And my computer's capable of playing, better graphic games than this. But mostly because I can bring my resolution down to 2K, or 1080p, and then, I can play, good looking games really well. But the problem is that this game is dead set on maximizing its resolution to my display. So the only way I can have it run at a decent frame rate is to play it in a window, which is annoying at the moment. But yeah, I guess that's just until they include the functionality to actually play in a smaller resolution full screen.
which brings me back to my conversation about the modding community, because a lot of the mods that I found
I
are
haven't
quality
looked at
of life
mods yet.
mods. Yeah. So the quality of life mods that I've been finding are things that add to the game that don't necessarily change the way the game itself works, but like it's things like making it so you can add in ray tracing for better graphics, or make it so that you can adjust your field of view. Things that really ought to be in the game anyway, and it adds it so that way you'd be able to have a mod that would let you adjust your resolution, so that way it'll make your frame rate a little bit more forgiving. But also there's things that have been added, like a mini map, which for an exploration game I'm honestly surprised that it doesn't already have. But there's a mod to add a mini map, and it doesn't it's not cheating. You can look at the map you have at any time, but it just saves you a few clicks from having to go in and out all the time.
Mm.
Another thing that was added was a little display, in addition to the HUD, where when you're looking at a particular PAL in the wild, there's a little counter above it to indicate whether or not you've caught 10 of them, because catching 10 of every PAL is one of the sub objectives. Because you want to catch one of everything, but you get a big XP bonus when you catch 5 and then when you catch 10. And then that completes the entry in your PAL deck.
Yeah, I'm
So
probably going to
having
end
that
up doing that with eggs when I can. But speaking about the eggs, in the footage I had before, you'll notice that my egg had a hatch time of 33 hours. And I found out that that's because I have the game on hard. And for some reason, while the game has some, reasonably challenging things like that, mobs do 4 times extra damage to me on hard, and technology takes like twice as long. But the surprising thing is that they actually have eggs take 36 times longer to incubate in hard mode, which is a bit of a strange decision to effectively make eggs completely worthless, especially if you're playing a single player game like I am. And when I quit the game, the world doesn't persist, while I'm not playing it. So that 33-hour egg would literally be the entire playtime that I'd probably be playing the game for. But
Was
I
that
found
the
out
you got
that you can customize the difficulty settings, and I found that before I click into my world to go into it, that I can go to customize difficulty, and I was able to set the egg incubation time from 4 to 1, and that decreased that 33-hour wait time to 30 minutes. So I'm gonna use that so that the eggs are actually something I can use rather than something that's useless in my game for some reason.
Well, so
think,
here's
yeah,
here's
like, no,
the rationale
where,
behind that. The problem with eggs, as they are currently in the game, is that the eggs have specific spawn places where they can spawn, and once you find one at a location, if you go back later, you could end up finding another one in the exact same spot. The eggs themselves, the type is randomized and the size is randomized. Now, it's much more rare to find a large or huge egg. It's more rare to find a dragon type egg than a normal type egg. But if you get lucky and you find a huge dragon egg, like in the opening area, it's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. And you could get that. And you could have a PAL that could be kind of game breaking for the difficulty curvature.
Yeah. So what do the powers that come out of eggs actually have different about them? Because I don't know yet.
Nothing. It's just eggs are just a way to get pals. And because you've got the different types of eggs, you could get pals from eggs that you don't already have. You could get pals from eggs that you would otherwise normally only be able to get from breeding. You could get pals from eggs from regions you haven't even visited yet. So so for that reason, it really, on hard mode they try to gate that. But one of the things I really applaud the game for, in general, is the fact that it does have a custom difficulty settings window, and like you've had a chance to go see it. You can customize a lot about the game, and you can still preset it to hard mode, but then just change one aspect of it that really is just feels like it's just a waste of time. So
Yeah.
you can
Like
still keep
one thing
everything
that
as
I like
hard.
about that is that I'm probably gonna, because for this type of game, like in Ark, for example, I like to have like experience and leveling take like 4 times longer. so it feels a bit more epic. And I have my current tier of weapon for a significant amount of time and stuff. Like I often do that with games like Civilization, where I actually play it on marathon mode, where a full game will take like 25 hours instead of like 5 hours to complete a whole run through from Stone Age to future, sort of thing. And that's something that I like to do in a lot of games to sort of make my time in them feel more significant if they're normally a sort of short game. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, well, and plus, one of the ways that the game kind of throttles your progress, it does it in a few avenues. One of them is your experience points, which will control the technologies that you can unlock. And then the other way is your resources, because even if you started off the game at level 50, there's going to be things that you're just not going to be able to craft until you get the resources for them. And a lot of them can be very hard to find. They can be in regions that are very dangerous to be in if you're a low-level character and you don't have the equipment to navigate in there. There are some places when I first got to Astral Mountain, for example, the cold debuff there killed me very quickly, and then I had a very hard time getting back there because I had to craft new cold weather gear just
Yeah,
to recover
I've
my
still
old
got to.
things.
Yeah, I still have to wait 2 levels before I have access to the cold resistant pelt gear. I've currently got the heat resistant pelt gear that's available 2 levels earlier. But yeah, that for some reason they've got a cold region up in the northwest starting area. So I guess that's like a hard mode starting area because you actually have to worry more about the cold temperature there. Like I can't actually explore it even though it's a low level area just because I don't have the clothes at the moment.
Right.
Although I think you can get certain powers, like I think there's powers that actually heat you up, like just by having them out, they give you a temperature bonus. So you can maybe
So
use a power to
Fox
explore
Sparks.
instead of clothes.
Well, it depends on their skills as well, because like a Fox Sparks is a fire type, but you want a pal that'll have the warm body skill, and then by having that, and then you also have the equipment that has them out with you, because you can have multiple pals out rather than just the one, but you have to have like the leash to do it. When I was playing my multiplayer game, there was someone who had all 5 of their daydreams out because he had the harnesses to do that with
Yeah,
them.
I've got my daydream out, but yeah, currently I'm not able to have any others out. They've just got things that allow me to ride them or whatever.
Yes, but the neat thing about that is that if you have a whole team of pals that you can have with equipment that lets you have them all out at the same time, then that can really change the tide in a combat situation because they can all participate.
And you said you need leashes for that, right?
Yeah, so when you
does that
capture
work
a particular
exactly?
PAL, you have the option to unlock a technology that corresponds with them, and that'll either be a tool or a weapon for them, or it could be a saddle to ride them as a mount, or a leash which allows you to have them out as long as they're in your party. You don't have to have them occupying your equipped slot. So you could have more than one pal out.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go like take on if you're playing single player and you're gonna go take on a boss monster in the area, it helps to have that extra firepower.
Yeah, I'm currently still trying to beat that first Electabuzz boss. Yeah, I hadn't. Yeah, I tried to fight it while I had my triple crossbow, and I managed to get it half down until it killed all my pals and kicked my ass. So even at level 16, I'm still having trouble getting past that bit. But I'm probably going
Now
to try again soon with the crossbow and some better pals that I've found.
the game does have a good tutorial in terms of
Just giving you tasks.
giving you tasks, in order. Like it says, open up this window, go to this thing, and to get you started. But there's a lot of things that the game doesn't explain to you that you kind of have to figure out on your own. But one of the things that you ought to know, and that the listeners ought to know, is that like for your first boss fight that's in the Syndicate Tower, that's an electric type POW, and they're weak to ground type.
Right. Yeah. I should
That,
probably
that that's a
get one of
Yeah, so
those.
what I would recommend is to prepare for that fight is to get yourself a full team of ground types and level them up with you
Oh
as
yeah.
you're playing.
I could probably
Just
get
have
one ground type because I mean I did half beat him in my attempt, so maybe
yeah,
don't have to go all out ground, but
no,
adjust my strategy a bit.
there is the ground types in the opening area there, and you can get multiples of them, just have them all in your party. And the nice thing too about this game is that everything you do gives you experience points. Now when you're playing on harder difficulty levels, you're going to require more experience points to level up. But everything you do, from crafting to exploring, finding new places, cooking, and traveling and combat, all gives you experience points, and it applies to your entire team. So if you just have them in your party, you're gonna level them up just by having them with you. Um, Another thing to know about combat, especially in a boss fight, is that as long as your pal doesn't get taken completely out, like to down to 0 health, if you recall them, they will heal in your box like in your party box while you're in combat. So as long as you recall them and then throw somebody else out first,
Hmm.
they'll have a chance to heal up. And then by the time you go through your order of pals, by the time you get back to that first one, they should have recovered their health. Maybe not all of it, depending how low a level you are.
Yeah, that's
You
something
might
I
end
should
up
probably
burning
do
through it.
too. Because
But you'll get a lot
normally you
more
have to go
mileage
back
out of
to your
them.
base and put them in the box to heal them if you let them get knocked out.
Yeah, if they get to 0, then you gotta take them back to your base, and then they gotta recover in the main box there, which I think the standard is 10 minutes, but it can be longer on harder difficulties.
Yeah, it's 10 minutes for me as well on hard.
Okay. So, but yeah, as long as you can call them back, like you cycle through your party to the next one, and then when you hit the key to send out the next one, it'll recall back the one that's injured but not unconscious, and then send out the other one immediately. So then what you're doing at that point is you're kind of kiting the boss around while your pal does most of the damage, because at that level, your pal's gonna be doing a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to combat, especially with a boss fight like that. So as long as you can recall it back before they get completely killed or knocked out, then they'll be able to recover their health in your party.
Yeah, so
And
you've
my and
been
my point is that the game doesn't do a good job of telling you those little tricks.
yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of experimentation, and a lot of it helps you progress by the missions that you get to upgrade your base. You know, it like gives you step-by-step instructions of what to build, and sort of teaches you what each building does. And you can have your pals like automate a lot of things, like collecting wood and stone, so that you don't have to do it yourself anymore.
Yeah. And like in the video here, we're showing the mini boss Chillette, which is a level 11 alpha. That's very strategic to get that early in the game, because to have that alpha ice type, you're going to want to have that in your party for the rest of your travels, because you want that to be level 50 or close to it by the time you get into the last areas, because the last, I think it's the last 6 pals you encounter are all hybrid dragon types of different elements, and every one of them is going to be weak to ice because they're a dragon type, including jet dragon, which is the final the currently it's the end game boss, but it's a pure dragon type, and so having an ice type to go up against that you've been training up from the beginning is really good for that.
Yeah, it's good that I managed to catch Chillette. Um, yeah, I've been waiting till I'm at a reasonable enough level to be able to catch those ones that are out in the wild, and that give you those ancient technology points and ancient technology parts that you need to build the better quality equipment. And you actually have to go and find blueprints to be able to create like an uncommon or rare tier bow or whatever.
Yeah.
That they use to, because you can craft like a basic bow with common equipment, but for the higher tier ones, which is kind of annoying because you have to use those ancient technology parts to repair them as well, so it can get pretty expensive to keep those repaired. There's a Chillette there. I managed to catch that.
Yeah. So I kind of find the conversation regarding whether or not one could call PalWorld a ripoff of Pokemon. I find it tiring because it's not. It does
Yeah,
a
it's not
lot
true. It's just
different.
conspiracy theories, spouted out by, what did I call it? I said that they've got Stockholm syndrome for their abuse of Nintendo and Game Freak because we saw how lazy they've been with the latest Pokemon game that functions way worse than this alpha of PalWorld does. And it's
Well,
the so-called complete game, and they've never even fixed it to be less janky than PalWorld is now, even to this day
let's
after
be
they've
clear. Let's be
released
clear with our
expansion packs.
terminology because it's not. This isn't alpha. This isn't even an open beta. This is early access.
Yeah.
Which is beyond both of those. But I find that the more you make the comparison between PalWorld and Pokemon, the more you notice how different they are and how PalWorld just does so much better than the Pokemon games.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
it's only
and
like partially a Pokemon game. There's so many things about it that are not Pokemon game at all.
but I mean, like in the same avenue of doing the things that Pokemon does, it does them better because just like the technical side aside, where you don't have the issues that the Pokemon games have, technically speaking, like the fact that the combat is real time, it's not turn based. There are people who like a turn based combat game, and great, Pokemon is always going to be there for them for that. But
And
like the
so
fact that
is
it's not,
World of Warcraft, and their
yeah,
pet mini game.
but
Go on.
yeah, and again, like that's those sort of game mechanics aren't copyrighted. Like you can copyright characters, you can copyright names, and you can have licensing to particular images or what a descriptions of art, which includes characters. But game mechanics don't get copyrighted. So like a creature collection capture system can't be copyrighted. Now, if the PAL sphere looked exactly like a Pokemon ball, that's a copyright infringement. And here's the thing, okay? Nintendo and Game Freak have demonstrated time and again for the past decade and a half that if anyone infringes on their intellectual property, they are quick to sue them with a cease and desist.
Except for
And
Pokemon Revolution Online for some reason.
the bottom line is, well, all right. So I don't know enough about that. The bottom line is that PalWorld has been transparent with what they've been doing. Their legal team has been in open communications with the Nintendo and Game Freak legal teams. And the bottom line is that if Nintendo or Game Freak was going to sue PalWorld
They already
for
would have.
copyright infringement, they already would have. And
Yeah.
that's the whole conversation. And the thing I find especially grating is you got these the Nintendo fanboys, and like I like Nintendo. I like their games. I feel like
Yeah.
they've kind of gotten a little complacent with the quality that they've been putting out lately, but that's neither here nor there.
Particularly with Pokemon. I mean, they're still doing Mario well and like stuff like that well, and Metroid.
Yeah,
But they seem to be
I
getting
think,
really lazy with Pokemon.
but like Pokemon Legends of Arceus, where it was an open world game and you go around and like the battle was still
Turn-based.
turn based, but you could capture quickly, and there was ways of just circumventing the grind of having to do a battle and then capture it. Like you could just capture quickly and just have it get captured without even having to do a battle, which was fantastic. And I thought that was a great direction for the franchise, and hopefully, they're paying attention. Like that's what this game represents. It's a wake up call to not just Nintendo, not just Game Freak, but the gaming industry as a whole. That if you have an intellectual property and you just get lazy with it, someone else is going to find a way to do it better, and
Yeah.
they're gonna, and that's exactly what they've done here.
Yeah, and it's been breaking records all over the board. I've got a page that I have. You can probably find it in that bunch of stuff that I linked in the MGB chat room.
Which one is it?
Well, other than the videos, I put an article. What is PalWorld? I'm just gonna use the images just to remind me of the stuff that people have found. So like there's this image of most played games, and PalWorld is the all-time peak and current peak of 1,121,000. And I think that's most played games of all time. Like the most amount of people that have been playing a game at once. Second is Cyberpunk 2077. Third is Elder Ring. But PalWorld has taken the throne as the most played game. Has had the most people playing it at the same time.
And here's the thing: Pocket Pair is playing themselves off as the underdog in this case, where they don't know what they're doing. And I'm sure that was true like a year and a half ago when they first started all of this. But they've gotten smart and they understand that controversy is free marketing. You know, they didn't start out calling this game. They didn't start out calling this game Pokemon with guns. Someone else did after watching the trailer, and that generated controversy. And now, because of that, everyone was talking about it, and because everyone's and when it comes to advertising, there's no bad news, you know. So they know that they are legally in the clear, and they can just let people keep going crazy, rattling their cages, saying it's Pokemon with guns, it's a ripoff. And the point is, it gets people talking about it. We're talking about it. I'm talking about it because it's a great game. But there's a lot of people who are talking about it because they feel like they need to rush to the defense of a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah, I don't understand why they're so cucked by Nintendo.
Every time that someone brings up, Pokemon with guns, it's essentially just like you said, free marketing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's all it is. It's basically it's engagement. That really is what it is. It's engagement. And for them, it's like, oh, perfect. People are talking about our game. People are wanting to know more about it. And yeah, sure. Like, there's going to be some people who they're going to be Nintendo cucks and say, hey, I'm never going to get this game because they just stole from Nintendo. But it's like, well, for every one person you lose to that, you're probably getting that person themselves generating at least one or two more people being interested in, hey, what the hell is going on with this thing? Why does it look so?
And that's exactly how it's been working, because for me, I have my thumb pretty close on the pulse of the gaming industry. Like if there's a new game coming out, I'm at least aware of it. Even if I don't have any intention of playing it, I know it's coming. I see tons of ads come across my feed because, obviously Google knows that I'm a video game player. So like I'll get ads for video games all the time. And for the last year and a half, I didn't see any ads for PalWorld. I saw the trailer on Steam when the page went up and I wishlisted it. Other than that, anything I ever heard about PalWorld was something I had to go look up myself. None of that was they paid almost nothing for advertising aside from putting up their Steam page.
Yeah, aren't they only like a team of? I think they're a team of like 40 people and maybe only $1 million that's like their budget compared to Pokemon's like $1 billion industry. Sorry, those are just some numbers I got from somewhere.
Yeah, and so it's the reason why it's kind of taking everyone by surprise is because nobody saw it coming in a very literal sense. There was no advertising for it.
I didn't see it coming.
But there were a ton of people who were anticipating it coming out very quietly. There were a lot of people who had their fingers crossed saying, boy, I hope it's good, but I've been burned by early access before. I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed. And the other thing, too, because here's the thing, and here's the thing that Nintendo has been very vehement about is hardware, proprietary hardware, which is why you don't see Nintendo games on the PC. There's no games developed by Nintendo for PC, and you would have had this exact same reaction to if Legends of Arceus came out on PC. If it showed up on Steam, it would be nuts. There'd be so many people who just want to play a Pokemon game on PC without having to play it on the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, because one of the biggest things that I haven't touched a Pokemon game in a while, and part of that is because I don't want to buy an entire system just because I want to play Pokemon.
Yeah, just like I don't want to have to buy an entire system just to play Final Fantasy 16. Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to buy the Switch either. I thought the Switch was ridiculous, but I played Breath of the Wild over my friend's house for like 3 hours, and then in that short 3 hour period, like I didn't even leave the plateau beginnings, like, but just the gameplay itself was so fun. I was like, I have to get this game, but if I'm gonna get this game, I have to get this platform. And I also got a bunch of other games for the Switch too, but like that was the thing that said like, okay, I have to, and that's part of how Nintendo makes a lot of money by having proprietary
Yeah, by
software.
having the exclusives.
But
For
hardware,
example, I originally bought the Switch exclusively for Smash Bros. When that came out, that was when I got a Switch, and I got the like bundle that came with the Smash Bros. Game.
yeah. And that's exactly, and they know what they're doing when they make those bundles, because they know people aren't buying the system; they're buying the games, and then they're being required to buy the system. And if Nintendo had put any of their games out on PC, they would be making a ton more. But here is the thing that they're worried about: they're worried about people modifying their software, and once you put it onto a computer platform, that's when you're exposing yourself to it being modified. Now, PalWorld already has a ton of mods for it. And that's, I mean,
Including one that
obviously,
literally makes it Pokemon.
well, that's the thing, and like, and then Nintendo kind of played their hand when that came out, or um, rather, Game Freak did, because that got struck down really quickly. Even after the modding community said, "Get that away from us! You're going to get us all killed."
Yeah.
And it was funny because I think it was like the very next day after the modding community said, "Get that away from us! You're gonna get us all in trouble." He ended up getting contacted and said, "Nintendo has come for me," and he ended up getting a cease and desist, which really just reinforces my point that if they were gonna sue PalWorld for any of this, they would have done so already. They do not hesitate.
Yeah.
And I've watched several legal videos. I've watched the one by I'm trying to remember the name there, but there's a couple of prominent YouTube lawyers who will lawyer a movie and say, oh, this movie lawyer scene was very unrealistic, or they'll talk about current happenings like political legal situations that are happening with former presidents, for example. Not And they talk about what the legal happenings are in layman's terms, so that way you can understand what's going on. And every one that I've seen, I follow the three big ones that have talked about the legal ramifications of something like PowerWorld existing. They all said that essentially, one, if Nintendo was going to do something, it would have done so already, and they explained why they didn't, because of all these nuanced rules when it comes to copyright law, which is complicated, to say the least. But it makes it so that a lot of the burden is on the plaintiff to prove beyond the shadow of a doubt that it's intellectual infringement.
Yeah. Yeah.
And by every metric, including in Japan, which is where this case would have been held, PowerWorld doesn't qualify for copyright infringement.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. The thing is, I guess I have to give Nintendo some credit, because they could be, being a hard ass about this, but they know that they'd be in the wrong if they do, and they're backing off. Whereas, like on YouTube, you've got a lot of other companies that are just cease and desisting people for no reason and illegally, like just claiming copyright on people's videos just because they have a few seconds of a late night show clip or some music, but it is within fair use. And there's a lot of companies that really just don't give a crap. They will strike your channel, and you will have no recourse because you can't afford a lawyer, and you're just screwed by whichever company decides to go after your video. Even though they don't legally have the right to, they still get away with it because there's nothing you can do about it because you can't afford a lawyer.
Well, that sounds like it's coming from a personal place, but I get what you mean. But that is another aspect of the equation when it comes to why Nintendo hasn't at least attempted to pursue a cease and desist legal action against PowerWorld, is because it's the current year, social media exists, and PowerWorld in the court of public opinion is bafflingly popular. And if Nintendo were to try to move against it, that would be a very unpopular move on their part. And they would be pissing off the very customer base that they want to maintain. Because there are a lot of people who play.
They've been doing that enough already.
Because most of the people.
Go for it.
There are people who love Nintendo who hate PalWorld, and there are people who love PalWorld who hate Nintendo. But the vast majority of the players who play PalWorld are still fans of Nintendo. A lot of people who play PalWorld played Pokemon, and I think that Nintendo kind of finds itself in Game Freak. They find themselves in a precarious position right now because the last couple of Pokemon games they put out have been kind of lackluster in the terms of public opinion.
Yeah,
they haven't been popular. I mean, yes, they've made great sales because they're expensive and everything's inflated. But the point is that like the number of games that have been sold, it's not comparing to what older games used to be in terms of their number of copies being sold. And Nintendo kind of realizes they're on the back foot here. And so if they were to try to make this kind of unpopular move, that might be the thing that would get a lot of people to say, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to buy a Nintendo anymore, and and I think there's a big enough percentage of their player base population at risk by making that move that, again, it's just one more factor that prevents them from attempting to pursue a lawsuit.
Yeah,
because they don't have the legal grounds for it to begin with, according to every legal expert that I've seen. But also, it would just be an incredibly unpopular move for them to do that, and they know that.
Yeah. I think we've covered that enough. We're at 41 minutes now. I just wanted to briefly get into what you think about the AI controversy that people think they've just made this game with AI. I'm not sure where people are getting that from, but I have been seeing it a lot as like a talking point. I think they're clearly deluded, but it is a popular idea that's going around. What do you think about that?
People use the dead internet theory to their advantage, and that's my guess. They're just using it to drive what's the term? They're just using it to drive views to a particular post. That's my guess.
Have you seen anything about that, Shakes?
Oh yeah, plenty. AI is kind of like our generation's boogeyman. Well, I don't want to speak for my generation, but like it's kind of like the current boogeyman of technology, where everyone's afraid that AI is going to come for all of our jobs and become Skynet and launch the nuclear missiles. And the point is, yeah. So here's the thing: even if Pocket Pair used AI and said, "Hey, AI program, whichever one they want to use," they say, "Hey, we're trying to make a monster collection game. Design us some monsters." The AI is going to look at monster collection games, primarily Pokemon, and say, "Okay, let's generate some monsters." And it's entirely plausible that AI could have generated some, new-ish monsters that are going to have some similarities to Pokemon creatures. That's a really great explanation.
Sorry, this is a good time to be selfish for a moment, but Cash, could I send you a link to a video? This is actually a video that I made, and I just now thought of it, but I think it's really good for an example of sorry for slowing down the show a bit, but I think it's a really good example of what AI can create. This is a music video that I created. Well, video I made for a song, the PokeRap in particular. Sorry, I'm just trying to quickly bring it up. PokeRap. Come on.
Anyways, while you're searching for that, I'll finish my point. It's entirely plausible that if they had used AI to say, "Hey, we're making a monster collection game, design some monster collection game monsters," it would look at Pokemon, which is going to be the heaviest weighted resource on the internet for it to pull from.
Sorry, just Cash, quickly, could you just load up the latest video I just put in the MGB chat room? It's a
Kinda-
video I
kinda
made,
figured-
and we'll just show really quickly a lot of examples of AI generated Pokemon art. So this is a video that I made entirely with AI art, and I just put each lyric of the song into Mid-Journey, and it created basically Electro Diglett, and it just goes through them all really quickly. And it's just the very first image that it made to interpret those Pokemon. Anyway, go on.
And here's the thing, like you could use this to make 3D models based on existing 3D models of monsters from monster collection games, and you're gonna run into some similarities. Now, like you could look at any of these and you're gonna say, oh no, these are not anything like the Pokemon from the song, but you could see similarities. But it depends on the quality of the AI, which I don't think that PokeRap necessarily had terribly good access to having because good AI is expensive, just in terms of licensing it, and also the hardware to operate it. I mean, you're getting results like this because of a variety of parameters that are going to be turned down for the sake of expedience. Because otherwise, you could run something a software parameter all night to get one image, but it'd be really good. Because it really is AI as it currently is a lot of spaghetti getting thrown at the wall until you get something that you want, and there's still a lot of like human intervention to sift through a lot of garbage to get something usable. And I would say that to develop 111 monsters using 3D models to have anything usable that you could attach to a motion skeleton for animations, you're going to end up with just as much manpower as you would have to just make it from scratch. And as a matter of fact, one of their designers was like just someone who who had applied to other places and didn't get accepted right away. There was a great story about it. But then she came back sometime later and they said, okay, yeah, we'll take you. And she ended up designing most of the monsters herself. But the idea that AI is like a cheat code, it's not. It's a tool like anything else, and you can't just ask a hammer to build you a house. There's still a ton of human involvement.
It's the way you use the tool that really ultimately impacts the way that the final product's going to be used. Like even if they did in some sense use some AI, like it's not going to be the end all be all of what like you were saying. You can't just have a hammer build the house. There's human input that has to go into it and utilize it in the proper ways in order to actually make that a reality. There's much more that went into PalWorld than simply, oh, we, they generated some monsters for us and therefore that was it. We just bypassed all the hard work. It's like, no, there's a lot more that goes into it than simply that.
Yep. Anyway, I think I'd like to just move on to maybe at least like 5 to 8 minutes of each of these other games that I wanted to cover. I asked you guys if you had any games that you wanted me to cover, but I guess you have just been playing PalWorld, or what have you been playing, Cash?
Oh, dude, I've been playing Get Fucked by Work. Like
Right.
literally 12, 15-hour days. But the one thing that I have been doing that's been helping me, decompress a little bit is Anno 1800.
Oh yeah, I saw that pop up.
I freaking love that game.
Yeah, so that
Game
you're
that I
playing
don't
that.
always play, but it is a game that I've been enjoying, more rather recently because I got all the DLC for it. I just love strategy builder games. I think they're called city builders as well.
Yeah, I did
I just
try Anno
love
1800, but I didn't get very far. I think I only got 2 missions in, and then I just sort of, I don't know, I didn't really vibe with it. It didn't catch my attention that much, and I sort of went to other games.
Fair enough. I mean, one of the things that I really like about it is when you put in more difficult AI, they start wars with you either early or pretty consistently. So if you don't begin starting to set up resources for it, like you will get fucked. It sucks, but it's also it's fun in a sense because it gives you a challenge. For me, that's what I really enjoy. I really enjoy overcoming a challenge like that, And not only that, but having to take care of the economy of the islands as well is something that I really get a kick out of. It's just a lot of fun,
Yeah,
at least for me. For me, I don't know. What do
yeah.
you think, Shakes? Or do you enjoy city builders? What's your take on the genre?
I was actually trying to look up the most recent one I had played. I'll have an answer for you shortly.
Yeah, like I tried City Skylines too. At the moment, it's like it's not working very well, and I actually refunded it. But I'm considering now that it's had some time to update to maybe try it again on Game Pass. Because screw paying full price for that game again. um, but yeah,
How was
I love
it?
City Skylines. I've got a lot of hours in it, and I've been wanting to give a proper go of City Skylines too when I can. And yeah,
Okay,
there's a lot of city builds that I enjoy.
okay. So I was trying to remember the name of it, and I found it. It's called Infraspace. The idea of it is that you're trying to build a city on another planet.
Right.
It's on Steam. It's like $25. Um, I think it's labeled early access. I don't think it is. I think it was when I got it, but I think it's done. It's out of early access now. There's a lot to it. Um, but one of the things that's great at is that you have to use the traffic lanes as like kind of like your conveyor belts to move things from building to building. So it's not only is it a city manager because you have to make the people happy, but you also have to manage traffic flow.
Oh yeah.
And there's not really like a fail state to it, but like you're gated by your population. So in order for your population to grow, you have to make them happy. You have to make your city attractive for ships to come in and bring new people to occupy your city. And then you can unlock new technology.
Yeah.
What's it called?
But I put a link to it in the channel. It's called Infraspace. INFRA, like infrastructure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Infraspace.
I think we could probably do an episode where we focus on a lot more city builders because that is a genre that I've got quite a lot of games that I've enjoyed in and could talk
I
about
actually
it
like
in
the
a lot
way
more
this
detail.
looks.
Yeah.
I like the way this looks so far because this actually looks something like it'd be up my alley.
Mm. Yeah, like that
It
settlement
reminds
survival
me
I
of
showed you on a previous episode. I think you'd like
it
that
reminds
too.
me of Factorio actually.
Oh yeah,
I gotta ask,
Factorio.
is there any like aliens or anything? What's the main enemy of the game? Is it just more so resources? Like not resources, but
They
is the
well
main enemy of the
they
game
did
logistics?
well if you like Factorio, there's also Dyson Sphere program.
Mm-hmm. I've seen
Oh,
that.
I've heard of that tier program.
Yeah, that's pretty popular in the news.
Dyson Sphere program is like Factorio on a sphere. So I mean, like you have like you start out in a solar system. We start on a planet, and then you can move to other planets within the solar system, and then you can move to other stars within your galaxy. So it's not quite on the scale of Stellaris. You could have, I think, like 100 stars, but each one of those is going to have like 4 or 5 planets
Mm.
that you can use. And the idea of it is that you're trying to build a Dyson sphere and unlock your technology. Like you know how like with Factorio you can get like space science.
Well, I
Um,
haven't played much Factorio myself.
well, I was mentioning to Cash, but the idea of it is they've added combat to it now. So now you can play against the Dark Fog. So it's Factorio
Oh, interesting.
in space against rogue robots. Because the idea was that the Dark Fog was sent ahead of you, and now you have been going to kind of sort of clean up the mess.
Hmm. All right. Well,
Okay.
we'll probably have
That's
like
what
a
I'm doing in real life right now. Whoa.
we'll
Yep.
probably have like a full episode about city builders sometime. Um, we're getting to nearly an hour, so I just wanted to move on with a couple things. The first game I wanted to talk about, well, so I've been on a bit of a horde survival binge for a while now, like probably 6 months since I first started this show. I've just been really into horde survival. Games like Vampire Survival, and there's two main reasons. firstly, I've just been kind of a bit too distracted to like I've had a lot of time that I've wanted to just play like a quick game where I can sit down for 10 to 20 minutes and just get a run in. And plus, they're also very cheap. And I've been on quite a bit of a budget lately because I'm unemployed again. And those games help me to have something to entertain myself with as little money as possible without resorting to piracy. Um, so previously I've talked about Soulstone Survivors. Um, but the one that I've been playing lately is this one called God of Weapons, because it has a, you're just on it, Cash. It was that, yeah, that one. That's God of Weapons. So this, what makes this game interesting as a horde survival, it functions a lot like Brotato, that I talked about before. But what makes this interesting is that it involves like a puzzle of inventory management. Like at the end of each level, you try to pick these weapons and put them into your inventory. But part of the puzzle is that you've actually got to try to stuff as many weapons in your inventory as possible, because every weapon that you stuff into your inventory space is something that you can actually use. So you can see there's an inventory, and you add free spaces at the end of each round, like he is there.
Okay, but right off the bat, immediately, what I love about this is that it's Vampire Survivor, but it's a 3D isometric game.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like that, where it's an auto shooter, but it's isometric
Yeah,
rather than just being a top down.
yeah, plus it's it got quite a bit more graphical effort put into it, so it's a lot nicer to look at. I mean, in some ways it can be nice to just look at something simple when you've got projectiles flying everywhere. But yeah, with this game, yeah, you've got all these different classes and they've got subclasses. I think there's like 10 classes, and then you can unlock their subclasses, and you do that by completing objectives, like managing to get your character to have plus 50 movement speed will unlock the Lancer class. Or just beating the game on a certain difficulty. There's like a new class that unlocks for each difficulty that you manage to beat the game in. And then there's also these items that you can unlock in the armory. Some you just unlock using these this material that you get by either beating the game or killing elite mobs in it, like on your way to beating the game. And then you spend these points in the armory, and it unlocks like new weapons and items that can appear in the shop. And it just sort of builds like that, just like Brotato does, with you constantly unlocking new things that will become available in your future runs. And it's got, just like Brotato, all these different weapons with different properties. Like you've got short range swords and like there's fists and claws that the barbarian uses mainly. And so your inventory eventually gets really big, and it starts becoming really strategic about stuffing things in. And also a lot of our weapons will have adjacency bonuses. So like you want to try to stack as many fists or daggers next to each other as possible, because they affect each one that's adjacent to them and stuff like that. So it's just been, a really fun game for me at the moment. And just this, like I think the most overpowered class that I've come across so far is the priestess, because she's like a health regenerator, and I managed to get her so powerful that she was basically almost instantly healing any damage that she took. And a lot of that had to do with me organizing my inventory, because they've got all these adjacency bonuses of every like there's this weapon called the Blessed Cross, which is like a holy wand that shoots like light projectiles, and you want to try to stack as many recovery items that add to your recovery stat around those as possible. And like I get a cross, and I just put recovery items all the way around the cross, and manage to get my priestess like insanely good health regeneration that way. And yeah, I've just been really enthused about this game lately, and it's been distracting me from having as much time in PalWorld, honestly. As
Well,
I hope to.
this game is not going to pull me away from PalWorld anytime soon, but I did buy it and download it while you were telling me about it.
Oh wow, there you go. It
Because
just made them
because
a
that
sale.
looks there we go. That looks like a ton of fun. I like the
Yeah, there's that
concept.
cross there, that epic weapon in the middle there. Like epic's the red color, and you like upgrade weapons by combining them together as well. So you could combine those 3 blue crosses into a purple cross, and the weapons upgrade like that.
Okay, yeah, you can merge them.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds like it's got a lot going for it. And you know what? I saw as soon as you said auto shooter isometric, like, all right, I like it already. And the fact that it's only $6, I'm like, okay, yeah, I have to go for it.
Yeah, it's totally worth the price. I've got like
Only $6.
45 hours in it, and yeah, it's been worth it for me. So then on to the next one.
I was gonna say, yeah, other than saying I like it, I'm gonna buy it. I really don't have anything to add to it because I haven't played it yet.
Yeah. So then quickly, just the next one is Army of Ruin. I probably have a bit less to say about this. If you wanted to go to the next tab, Cash.
Let's see it.
Army of Ruin. No, that's the shop game. There it is. Now this one's a bit more basic. It doesn't have as much of a. It's a lot more like Vampire Survivors in that it's just a more, literal, but 3D and nice looking interpretation of Vampire Survivors. And it's got a similar sort of thing where you complete objectives in order to unlock new weapons and stuff that can appear in your future runs. And it's just I've had a lot of fun in it too. I've got like 30 hours in it. Just
Now here's my first impression. Just seeing the two side by side, that first game definitely looked more frenetic, and this looks very subdued. Like I'm sure it gets very exciting. Like if we click forward into the video here for this playthrough, but like just looking at these initial moments, it looks very slow.
Yeah, it is a slower game. Like your movement speed is a lot slower in general, but I think because there's so many passive upgrades that you just keep on increasing, I think you'll eventually even start rounds with a lot more power than you're seeing right here. Like, once you start.
Well, I don't mean like your ability to like deal damage or move. I just mean like I'm looking at it like it looks more calm. Like whereas with the last one, there are enemies moving a lot faster. You were diving and ducking out of projectiles.
Yeah.
And whereas with this here is just kind of like, like all the zombies just kind of like all walking toward you.
It does get hectic though, let me tell you. But when you start getting absolutely surrounded and you do have to like you instead of dodging, you have like an ability like they've just activated a temporary shield ability. That's that hoplites ability. Like each different class has got like an ability that they can use that's on cooldown. And the hoplite has a shield that allows you to, if you're surrounded by enemies, manage to walk to the other side of them safely for a moment so you can get out of being completely surrounded and run away for a bit. But yeah, just if you liked Vampire Survivors and Brotato, this is another way to get that sort of fix. And yeah. So if you guys have anything to say about it.
It definitely does.
I'm looking at the video for it on the Steam store page. It looks pretty exciting. I'll say one thing though: the music is pretty good just from watching the store page video.
And also, this game's only like half auto aim. There's some skills that do require you to aim, so there is sometimes a use for the right stick. There's like half of the skills will fire automatically, and half will fire in the direction that you're facing the right stick.
And it's only $8.
Yeah, so it's pretty good value. And it lasts you a long time. Like I've got like 30 hours in it, and I have barely even scratched the surface of unlocking very many of those passives that you saw there. Like the game could be very long if you want it to be in terms of how long it lasts you, because it takes a while to really start creeping up that power.
Yeah, and especially if you're one of especially if you're one of those 100% completionists. Not
Oh
as
yeah, the game would last you ages if that's the case.
yeah. And that's one of the things too that I like. And I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here when it comes to talking about PalWorld, but again, there's a lot of aspects to PalWorld that like you can make the game as challenging as you want it to be, depending on what your goals are, because it really is an open-ended game. And I like any game as a general rule that allows you to make it as difficult if you want to make like self-imposed challenges, or if there's like particular goals you want to do rather than just
Oh
seeing
yeah.
the story through.
For example, in this game, there's a goal for each stage to beat it without moving, which sounds at the moment like it's impossible, but I guess once you get like a certain pickup range or whatever, you can maybe actually beat a stage without moving somehow. So that's one, yeah, self-imposed challenge that they have in the game. There's achievements for, I guess, what he's trying to do now, win without moving. Sorry. Yeah, did you want to finish what you were saying? I'll quickly go to the next game.
No, that was really it.
All right, so just one more of this genre that I wanted to cover. This is a game that I haven't played, but I've been very intrigued by it. But I keep being sort of discouraged by the fact, yeah, that's the one. Discouraged by the fact that it's still in very early access. But it's looking to be the Vampire Survivors Hades crossover. So this actually has like a story. Oh, sorry, no, that's the wrong one, Cash. That's the shop game that's next. There it is. So this is like a crossover of Hades and Vampire Survivor, and it actually has a story where you collect god powers, and the gods actually have dialogue and a storyline behind them, and stuff like that. And I wanted this game. It's like $10 Australian dollars at the moment, and yeah, it just looks like another one of those sort of games. But yeah, it has a lot of crossover with Hades as well. Like I think in the video soon it will show some actual gods, with dialogue.
Now, let me just as an aside, let me ask you. Now, you said Australian dollars. Like, do you have a slang for your currency, like like bucks or quid? Do you use quid?
Dollaroos. I could probably
All right.
think of
Now,
more, but
no,
my
that's
mind's
fine.
blanking on it a bit. Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right. So please continue.
I mean, I think that's all I really have to say because I haven't played it myself, but yeah, I definitely want to.
Yeah, I will say for Hades, like the gameplay is solid, the music is good, the graphics. But I think what people really connect with Hades is the story. So if you can have a Vampire Survivor style game with good music, decent graphics, like the graphics, I think people are starting to realize that graphics aren't everything.
Oh
I mean, that's
yeah.
why the indie scene has been so huge these last few years, especially I would say like the last 10 years, but especially the last 5 years. You've had a lot of games that have come out that have been essentially this, where it's this quality of graphics. But if the gameplay is solid, if it's got good music, then people don't really care. I mean, especially you have a lot of people who really can't afford a gaming PC but want to be gamers because the being a gamer now is become so mainstream, but not everybody has the budget to have a high-end gaming PC to have the latest, Call of Warfare,
Yeah.
that game that requires like 96 gigs of whatever.
Right.
And so like being able to choose between spending $60 on a game your computer can't run or getting $6-10 games like this that are all fun in their own way,
Mm.
it really it's a fantastic
Yeah.
it's a huge market.
Yeah, I'm a bit I'm very careful with AAA games now, and to be honest, I will most likely pirate a AAA game just because I just can't afford that kind of money, especially while I'm unemployed. And frankly, I need to start saving up to move out of this apartment because it's becoming dangerous to my health, I think, the amount of neglect that my landlords have had for this place and stuff like that. But yeah.
But anyways, I've got high hopes for the indie game future. And PalWorld is obviously a tremendous example of that success, and we've all got a lot to look forward to in 2024.
Yeah. Could I just cover one last game?
Yep.
So yeah, the last game on the agenda is a very different type of genre. But I think this is the game that has done the best job of shop simulator. It's like a medieval shop simulator. And what you do is you design your shop and you put up displays of all the items that you have on sale. And there's also a crafting component where you actually like create the items yourself from base materials. So, you have a garden and you plant like lavender and chamomile and all kinds of different vegetables. And then you combine them together on your cooking workstation to create like higher value meals. I'm not sure why that video is so slow. Get to some action already.
What is the name of the game?
Okay, that I keep forgetting it. It's Winkeltje. It literally means the little shop in German. So yeah, it's obviously made by German developers, and it's called Winkeltje, which is the little shop in German, and it's just really fun and really well fleshed out. And what you do is, I mean, this is a very fancy looking shop. You'll probably start off having a very basic design because you gradually unlock like pieces of the shop one at a time as you progress. So you start off with like a 3x3 tiny space, and you have just like 2 shelves to sell stuff off of. And as you progress in the game, you get more crafting stations, and there's like 4 different categories of items. There's like ingredients, which are the base materials, and then you have cooking station, where you can start combining ingredients to make the food items. And you've got the blacksmithing station, which has things like horseshoes and eventually swords. And you have your clothing station, which starts off with like shoes and then graduates up to like wedding dresses. And then there's just a lot of options that you unlock more as you go along. You unlock like more decorative items, but the decorative items do actually have an effect in that you'll want to have a bunch of decorative items down to increase the appeal of your shop, which increases the amount of actual customers that you get. And
You know what game this reminds me of? It's a free mobile game.
Yeah, I've played a shop mobile game, but obviously that's got the microtransaction bull crap that can get very annoying. Whereas this is a full-fledged game that you don't need to download any additional content for. The only DLC that they have for this game is just the ability to have a cat. They've decided to charge like an extra few bucks for. But yeah, other than that, the only thing, like if they were to increase some new categories of items, so at the moment they've got the blacksmithing station, the clothing station, food station, and the other one was alchemy. You can make potions, and if they were to release DLC that included more types of items, I reckon that'd be worth paying some extra money for a DLC for that. And one thing that happened to me when I played this though, like I've actually played this in 2 main sessions where I put a lot of hours in, like I think 1.5 years apart. So I first bought this game shortly after it came out on Xbox, and played a full playthrough all the way to having a really big shop. And that went fine. But then I re-downloaded it again recently because I was in the mood for it again, and they'd updated the game a lot and added a lot of stuff in patches since then. But in my second playthrough, I got to a pretty big shop, but then I got a hard glitch that literally made me unable to get through the day anymore. I had like some customers that would continuously get stuck in a certain spot, and then I wouldn't be able to close my shop because they weren't able to leave, and my shop couldn't close until all the customers left. So that was yeah, that was a bit annoying. I had to abandon that game or somehow find some way to rearrange my furniture to maybe make the glitch not trigger anymore. But yeah, I gave up by that point. So
what I meant was what I meant was I wasn't saying that this looks like a mobile game. I'm saying it reminds me of a specific mobile game called Shop Titans.
yeah, that's
Right. I mean, and yes, it has microtransactions, but like it's not like in a pay to win format. The fact that the game is free, and you don't have to spend any money at all, and it has no ads. Like there's no forced ads. But there's lots of things that you can buy with your money, but none of it is like it's not a competitive game where you pay for the stuff and it's pay to win. It's just paying for just more stuff.
yeah, progress in your single player experience or whatever.
Yeah, and because it's like I said, it's not a competitive thing. So it's like if you want to be able to like have more stuff in your shop than beyond the core gameplay, there's no reason why you can't play for free and have the full experience. It's just I think that's a good microtransaction model as opposed to like throwing ads in your face every 30 seconds.
Yeah, I did play Shop Titans for a time, but eventually I was just like, okay, this is starting to get paywally now, or I just lose interest in it, like I did with what's it called? Monster Hunter Now. I was really into that for a little while, but I kind of got bored of it. But once the grind started getting really high, but yeah, I'll probably talk more about that game another time. And yeah, I think that's all I really have to say about this game. Like you actually have to hire workers that will go and refill stock for you once your shop gets too large and overwhelming to handle by yourself, because you have to like if you have items that people can buy in your shop, then they'll go and buy it. But if it's only in your stock, then they'll have to come to the counter and buy it off you and stuff like that. And eventually you start to automate the shop more and not have to do so much with your player character itself. So yeah, I highly recommend that game if you're into that sort of shop RPG kind of thing. So anything else you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, I think that covers everything for me.
Yeah, same here. I think should be good.
All right. So I mentioned it last time, but I'll mention it again. I've started a new YouTube channel specifically for the Mystery Gaming Bros. So I've got all our podcasts on there as well as this one. The intention with that is to make it so that people who aren't interested in all my pony crap and just want to hear about games can go to that channel. And I'll be putting maybe game footage and other stuff there. And these podcasts. And I'm also going to sort out an actual proper separate video podcast feed for the Mystery Gaming Bros. At the moment, I've just got it. I've just got these podcasts going to my audio book podcast, which has all the pony stuff on it. So I'm going to try to separate those as well. And by the time I release this episode, I should have that set up. And I'll have the link in the description to this separate podcast feed for just the Mystery Gaming Bros, separate from my MLP fanfiction audiobooks. So, yeah. Subscribe and all that stuff if you haven't already. We'll be having another totally not AI guest endorse the podcast at the end. So listen through to that. And thank you for listening.
All right, everybody. Good game.
Yeah, this has been Mystery Pony Fiction and Sets of Trancer and Mystery Gaming Bro. And you've been Cashflow and you've been Shakespearicles. And
I still am.
Signing out. Thank you for listening.
Hey, it's Tony Soprano. I'm going to tell you what you need to do. I'm going to need you to listen to the masterpiece of a podcast, The Mystery Gaming Bros. Otherwise, well, to say it would be a shame for something bad to happen to those nice kneecaps of yours.
Game over.